Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We might make a start. Welcome to the Georges River Local Planning Panel meeting for the 19th of March 2020. I take it you can hear me clearly? Thank you. We do apologise for the arrangement of the room, but given the current climate around the globe, you'll notice that we've spread you out and we're spread out. So I think there's hand sanitizer there if you wish to use it. So we'll be conducting our meeting a little bit differently to normal circumstances. So as I said, welcome. We are the panel that have been appointed by the Council to determine specific development applications, including the development applications that are on the agenda today. And we'll do so in accordance with the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. My name is Paul Vagotis. I'm the chairperson for today's panel meeting. And with me today are, to my left, Mr. Michael Levy, who's one of our experts, Mr. John Brockhoff, one of our other experts, and our community representative, Mr. Cameron Jones. The panel acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land in which this meeting is being held, and that being the Bedigal people of the Eora Nation. I'm required to advise you that under the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, this panel meeting is being live streamed and is available to be viewed on the Council's website. So everyone, when addressing the panel, must ensure that they speak clearly into the microphone, which is down to my right. When speaking at this meeting, members of the public should ensure their speech is respectful and appropriate. Any person using discriminatory, defamatory or offensive language may be exposed to liability to which this panel takes no responsibility for. Any part of this meeting that is held in the closed session will not be recorded. The applications that will be considered today have all been reported on, and assessment reports have been presented to the panel. The panel has also undertaken inspections of certain sites and for 3 of the matters on the agenda today, and we've also looked at the nearby locality. We'll deal with the 5 applications in order as listed in the agenda, which is 57 to 59 Clark Street, Peakhurst, 5/25 Kyle Parade, Kyle Bay, 39 Waitara Parade, Hurstville Grove, 71 to 73 Jubilee Avenue, Carlton, and then the last one is 66 Mulga Road, Oatley. As required by the Local Planning Panel Code of Conduct, panel members are required to disclose any conflicts of interest in respect to any of the matters on the agenda today. The relevant forms prescribed by the Department of Planning have all been completed and are tabled for the Council for the public to view, and also they'll be available online for viewing as well, and they're available at the meeting today. No panel member has disclosed any conflicts of interest in relation to today's agenda. Thank you. As we progress through the matters on the agenda, only those persons who have been registered to speak will be permitted to address the panel. Each person will be provided with 3 minutes to address the panel, but if you need longer on your point, then as the chair, I have a discretion to allow you to speak longer. In each item, we'll hear from the objectors first and then the applicant. I would ask those persons that are seeking to address the panel to come forward and sit at the front and talk clearly into the microphone. This is the microphone here. Once the panel have heard all the various speakers who have been registered to speak for the particular application, then we'll be ready to move to the next item. Members of the public are free to leave after their item has been dealt with. When you're addressing the panel, please remain seated because the panel is likely to ask questions. So once we've heard from all the registered submitters who've made their submissions, and they've all been heard by the panel, then the panel will retire for its closed session to deliberate and make determinations, and those determinations will be published on the Council's website tomorrow. So now we'll move to the first item, which is 57 to 59 Clark Street, Peakhurst, for the demolition, lot consolidation and construction of a multi-dwelling housing development, swimming pool over a car park, and the use of the completed dwellings as a group home. We have registered to speak 4 speakers, 3 of which are objecting to this application. The first speaker is Mr. Peter Little. Mr. Little, are you here? Please come forward, sir, and make the trek to the microphone. Thank you. Now, your name is Mr. Peter Little and you're from 61 Clark Street, Peakhurst. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Floor's all yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the panel, and I'm most appreciative of the detail and time that has been taken in terms of the preparation of the report and the consideration of matters that are here. I'd put some bullet points there, but I had the opportunity to meet a couple of you briefly today when you were on site to look at the site next door. So I don't wish to raise any further items, except I'm not sure if you're in a position to answer questions in terms of informing us of post determinations that may be made later today. What avenues are there to curtail, I guess, their ambitions of the owners to have such an ambitious plan of putting so many sites on a foreshore ruled double block? I'm not sure if you're in a position to be able to answer.
Like all applications, this application will be determined. Of course, the panel has the power to defer the application and ask for further information if it chooses to, or it can approve it or it can refuse it. The current recommendation before us is for refusal. If the panel goes down that path and refuses this development application, then the applicant has a right of appeal, either through a Section 8.2 review, which is back to another panel of this constituency, or alternatively, they can go to the Land and Environment Court on appeal. Right. And they can do that within 6 months of the determination. So they're the options available to any person in the state of New South Wales that has a development application determined adversely, or indeed if there were conditions imposed on a development consent, if it was approved and those conditions weren't suitable to the applicant has then a right of appeal to the Land and Environment Court again, or through an 8.2 review back to another panel like this. So that's the procedure set out under the Act. Okay. Okay, I hope that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, it's to an extent. You know, I guess the great concern is the volume of housing proposed on these two sites. Be it that, you know, if the foreshore ruling basic rule is at 500 square metres and we're seeking an application for something of around the size of 240 square metres, the simple math doesn't even provide, you know, basic obligation to the rule set that's there. And to think that there's still an opportunity that could be overturned is just a little, you know, further concerning, you know, at this stage. Yeah.
That's the democratic process we live under. That's the framework. An application's made to a council. Council then determines it, and if the person who is in receipt of that determination is not happy with it, they can go elsewhere. Yep. As I said, either a review or they can go to the Land Environment Court for a meritorious reassessment of the application, which is another process in itself, and involves, you know, a legalistic application.
And there's opportunity there for submissions to be received. And
yes. If the matter does go to the court, then the court would, well, the council would obviously be the respondent to the proceedings. The respondent council would then contact the resident neighbours who objected to the original DA, in this case yourself, and advise you of a proceeding. And there is a conciliation process, firstly, where the Commissioner of the Land and Environment Court will visit the site and then meet all the resident objectors on the site, hear their submissions on site, and then the matter would be the subject of a private, without prejudice, conciliation conference between the parties, being the applicant to the proceedings and also the respondent council with its experts. And then if that can't be resolved through a conciliation process, then the matter goes to a contested hearing, which is another step in the process where normally the objector's evidence would carry forward from what they said at the conciliation, and then it's a matter of expert testimony as to whether or not the proposal as put to the court is meritorious and worthy of approval or refusal.
Or otherwise. Okay, great.
Thank you. Just hold on, I'll see if there's any other questions of the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next submitter is Steve Nicolaris. Please come forward, sir. Your name is Steve Nicolaris and you're from 55 Clark Street, Pico, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time today, guys, and good to see you guys on site today. And the good thing is, you've actually seen the scale, the density, and the amount of houses they want to try to fit onto a foreshore block that's obviously clearly stated on the LEPs. As a street, there's a number of us you would have seen on the actual submissions that reject, and we're glad as a street because a lot of us couldn't make it out due to work commitments and everything else. But speaking from the street, we're all very, very glad that it's been refused because it's actually quite ridiculous to have such a big scale of density, especially drawn up by experts in the trade, knowing that the LEPs state this and they do that and have so many non-compliant issues. Obviously all of us by surprise of the scale of the actual building. But it is a foreshore. At the back there's a national reserve, there's a national park reserve, Salpan Creek's right behind it. It's going to absolutely destroy the beauty of the area. It's sitting on a foreshore. Every single person that's built in that area, as the planner decided to obviously call the street houses Mac Mansions for some reason on page 11 of his SOPs. We don't really appreciate that sort of remarks. If you want to go and build a Mac Mansion, we're nowhere near that compared to what you guys are intending to build in that particular block. Regardless of consolidation, 6 is ridiculous, even 3 is ridiculous. So we believe as a street that if you want to keep it conservative, we're happy, but obviously you can tell the street's not happy. So yeah, we appreciate the council going through all the submissions and actually doing a great job to refuse it, because there's so many grounds to refuse that. And the agenda made sense, not just to me, but the whole entire street. So I speak on behalf of them also, getting phone calls on the street. And at the end of the day, great work. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to take every single submission into serious account, because I'm directly next door. And the funny thing is the builders used my house as an envelope. Yeah, the front looks exactly the same, but when you go to the back of it, it just turned into a concrete jungle. There's no privacy for us directly next door. I've got a pool, got a family. I don't appreciate a balcony looking right into my backyard, into my bedrooms and everything. Windows that we had to offset and remove during our building stage to accommodate for neighbours. We did that with no stress or no concern to the neighbours, from 4 to 6 windows down to 2. And they were opaque, so you can't see through on both sides, my northerly and my south. So I suffer. We lose our ventilation through the house. It doesn't mean that these guys now can go up there and put 6 windows on the top floor looking right into my house. The setbacks are 900, they should be 300. But you guys have all that information, so I'm not going to go on about that. And you guys did a great job to break it all down and basically verify to us as novices in the street that we work together through the LEPs that are there in black and white, and I don't understand why they don't follow the rules also. It's one rule for all. So we follow the rules in the street with our Mac Mansions, they should follow them also. So really appreciate your time today and for us to be able to voice our opinion today too.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nicolaris. I'll just see if there are any questions of the panel. Thank you for your submission.
Awesome work, guys.
Thank you. Our next submitter is Alexia Ted Manson. Sorry. Yes, I've got the email. That will be read in conjunction with the panel's determination. Now, speaking on behalf of the applicant, we have Mr. Bruce Nathan. Mr. Nathan, come forward. Your name is Mr. Bruce Nathan, and you're the town planner, I believe, for the applicant. Is that correct, sir?
Correct, Chairman. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the panel. Firstly, I wish to raise a number of issues, but I have heard the issues raised by the parties who objected. Unfortunately, we didn't receive the objections at the time we were supposed to receive them, And when we received the objections, we have actually addressed those issues by trying to lodge an amended plan to council. However, council rejected the amended plan on the basis under section 55. At that time, I make this point, I think it's exceptionally important in relation to time and management, and 65 pages of why this project should not go ahead. I'll make a number of comments, please, and I would respectfully allow me to go through this. Firstly, this particular application itself had a pre-DA process which was instigated through the team leader of this council, and on the 15th of August 2019, there was directions given in relation to the application on the group homes. I make the comment that on the 9th of March, there was an application made forward to council in relation to address the concerns of the neighbourhood. The objection letters were not available from council. I obtained the objection letters via the Department of Planning, or Planning New South Wales rather, and we intended to lodge an amended plan. However, council had not, I make this comment, this is exceptionally important, had not completed their report prior to the time we requested to lodge the amendment. So in other words, the report was not complete, our amendment was available and council refused to take the amendment. Okay, firstly, I will be asking for a request for this panel to actually defer the application based on the fact that we don't believe we've been treated fairly in relation to the lodgement of the amendment. I'll make a couple of comments. We have a proposed amended plan which will, and I'll cross, if I have time, Mr. Chairman, I can cross comment to some of the comments of the objectors, and I appreciate their comments because we were on the way of fixing them, but no one allowed us to do so. And regarding the amendment of plan, we actually reduced it by removing a top floor, which was previously units development houses number 3 and 4. That is now a single level property.
Right, Mr. Nate, no, I don't want to cut you off, and I'm going to allow you to speak, but
Thank you.
I think it's clear that this panel has a plan before it.
Correct.
Right? You're about to address us on an amended set of plans that we don't have before
Correct.
us. Right. The procedure is, under clause 55 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Regulation, the council must approve the amendment of a DA. At this stage, the council has not done that. So you need to make submissions about the current plan before this panel.
Well,
and that's the important thing that you need to understand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
This panel doesn't have any amended plan before it. So that's fundamental to your submission.
Electronically has been lodged, Mr. Chairman, with respect, and I totally agree with relation under 55 and 56A. However, as my opening comment, I was making a request to this panel for this application be deferred so that the elements on concerns from all the the objectors could be addressed in a fair and equitable manner.
And I accept that that's your application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have a problem with you making that application to the panel, but to address us on a notional application that we have no knowledge about and we do not have before us is an exercise that we can't assist you with.
Thank you. There is 2 amendments which will address the issues raised by the objectors. The pre-DA advises us in relation to the application on the group homes. There's 65 pages why this project should not be approved, written by the report. Within that, in all the objections, there were statements made to the effect that it's multi-dwelling, it's under SEP 70, it's housing for disabled, and it's aged care. It's none of those things. And you gentlemen, you're experts, you understand group housing. It's none of those things. So the assessment process has been utilising words which are preemptive words, which are, as the objectors have said, council very happy that they're rejecting this. This is the application before you is a recommendation for refusal. It's not a rejection yet. The way the document is written in words envisaged, subjective and frequently used to the words which you're very much aware, Mr Chairman, and the other members of the panel, words to the effect which come around to the same element which is held in the Land Environment Court numerous times. I don't like it, and consequently I don't understand it, and if I don't understand it, I object to it. And that was what's taken place in relation to the deemed by council 22 objections, which actually were two actual objections from the two objectors which we have addressed the issues who have come here today, and we hadn't had the opportunity to deal with. The project itself actually achieves all the quality design issues for a group homes. In fact, the issues regarding the land parcel, as you've inspected today, has lantana mostly all over it. It has a lot of loose rocks, the trees are falling over, and the issue in relation to environmental outcomes, as a 45-year planner, the environmental outcomes on this is we're actually performing stormwater management and placement of trees and other elements on this site to improve the overall runoff on the site and actually remove any of the elements which have taken place at this point of time. And that has not been addressed in any clear terms. There's been a lot of effort made in the report to actually refuse this application, but there hasn't been any effort to actually put forward the evidence in relation to it. We make the comment that the current strategy adopted by this council and the New South Wales government and the 9.1 Minister direction in relation to this type of property is well within the realms of the new LEP draft, which has been addressed by this council. In fact, if you go to clause 110, it's lost in the document, but if you go to clause 110, the assessment planner affirms this factor. So in other words, there's a lot of documents there which making statements to refuse it, but there is very little to affirm the directions which have been given throughout the process. That is the critical thing that I wish to raise. I could raise comments regarding the objectors if you wish, because just briefly, you haven't got a plan, but the issues regarding separation of the adjoining property, which is number 55, we've addressed that by actually moving the entire structure. The issue in relation to windows and so forth, we've addressed that by another form. So I'm requesting this panel to defer the application to go to council. So council, I had discussions with council, so council can then accept the amended plan and then we could deal with it accordingly. The other main issue that I wish to raise is that there is substantial amount of environmental enhancement takes place by the actual property itself. We've been there today, it's very steep block, it's held together with lantana, I must repeat myself. It can create some people say that it's too much on the site. 5 that we intend to put on the site is not too much. In fact, the design outcomes, if you read through the report that was lodged for the application, there is higher performance design outcomes by utilisation of the driveway between the two properties, which all properties have problems where you have dead space. This ends up with a 28% improvement in environmental outcome on the site and 35% of actually landscaping content on the site by the utilisation of the current design. Any questions, gentlemen? I'm quite happy to answer.
Okay, Mr.
Nathan, Paul, you met me before.
Sorry, did I pronounce that incorrectly?
Yeah, it's Nathan, it's Irish, Paul. It's all right.
Okay,
You mentioned my name like that before over the years.
All right, thank you. My point being, under clause 55, you're entitled to make that application to the council for an amended DA. From what I understand, that no approval has been granted, so that needs to be clear. We're dealing with the application as made and presented to us today. One of the fundamental issues that has been identified on the business paper on the agenda is that your plans seek to breach certain development standards. Now,
may I respond to you? Mr. Chairman,
You may.
the terminology of breaching of standards is how you actually, what standard you're applying. This is under the LEP. It's not under the DCP. It's not multi-level development. It is not aged care. It's not 70. See, look, there's a lot of very experienced planners here. We can all write a report of 45 pages of what it's not, but there's very little written in that report of what it is. And that's where I question the quality of the report purely on the basis, and when you read through all the objections, which I've read through every one of the objections, the persons who are objecting is because the information has not been translated to them in any fair form. There's ones who actually cut and paste comments out of other councils in relation to what this is. And they don't understand group housing, and they keep on raising it back. And the whole report there's 3 sections, over 42 pages of that, is relating to what this isn't. It is not multi-development. It is not
Right.
70. It is not aged care.
Your characterisation of this DA is for multi-dwelling housing.
No,
Is
it's
that
not.
correct?
It says-
Well, what is it?
It's group homes.
So it's a group home development. That's what you applied for?
Yes.
That's not what the application is.
I'm sorry.
Was made for.
On the statement, if you have actually look on the council's website, it is group homes. If there's
right.
any other documents are saying incorrectly, it's not my fault. It's actually on the council's website, group homes. It's on the statement of environmental effects. It's on the application. It's group homes. It's on the plans. Group
I
homes.
accept that.
Thank you.
I accept that. Being that said, you've still got issues with respect to the development standards. I invite you to have a look at the report that's been.
Yes, I have, Mr.
And
Chairman.
There's a number of comments about the principal development standards, and that begins on page 27 and goes right through to page 30.
Yes.
And one of the fundamental issues that this panel has is it doesn't have a clause 4.6 written section.
With respect, a 4.6 was lodged.
Well, I know, and I'm looking at it, but it doesn't address those standards.
The issue is a 4.6 is not required under group homes. A 4.6 is required in relation to addressing the implications of the group home site in relation to the adjoining properties. So you write a 4.6 to deal with any implications on the adjoining properties.
Well, if that's your submission, that's fine. I accept that you're entitled to your opinion.
Thank you.
All right. I'll just see if there are any questions of the panel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've mentioned, the group homes and how that's very much the basis of the application, but I've been able to find very little information about how it's intended to operate as group homes, and particularly having regard to the definition of group homes under the LEP.
With respect, Michael, the group homes on this, the property belongs to a group of pharmacists, okay? They intend to actually, and I note within the report, there is derogatory statements within the report which are actually at the hands of the lawyers at the moment. There's statements to the effect to put people off and say, Dawa Company, Pre-2I Limited, is not a registered aged care provider. You're not required to be a registered aged care provider to actually build group homes. You're not required to be an NDIS provider to have group homes. What you are required is when you build group homes, prior to actually the occupation certificate issued, all right, and this is where I'm very disappointed. There's no conditions whatsoever. This has been written like a fait accompli, right, which is completely irregular in relation to any application. There should have been a set of conditions. The set of conditions on group homes are that the property satisfies the guidelines for persons who are either transitional or permanent group homes. This is group homes for persons who have paid or unpaid or support. That is what it's about. That is what the Act states. That is a condition within the development consent. When that condition of development consent on group homes, the property is constructed on the construction certificate, as you're very much aware, and certified, but also Department of Health have to actually give you an issue at that point of time, before occupation can take place, that it properties accordingly. Now, I'm exceptionally disappointed as far as design principles are concerned to satisfy an objector to the north, who's actually 7.2 metres away from the property. We required to move the property 1 metre to the south. And what that did, it eliminated a at-grade pathway for the 2 units behind the 2 front ones. But now we've actually eliminated that upper unit because there was a complaint about the height. But those 2 other units could be retrofitted for the lift to work exactly the same as the front 2 units. So the concept of group homes is not, it is a first part of it. It's a part where the conditions are, and then group homes, this is for persons in this particular area. Even if you read through the pages as per my note there, page 66 to 75, the current strategy undertaken by IDs, which all you gentlemen have read that because it's quite extensive document in relation to the strategy of this council, it states very clearly we need to deal with this type of housing for persons who live in the location, who wish to release themselves from their current dwelling so a family can move in there and they can still remain in this location. So these are just nice 3-bedroom dwellings, right, which they can have high interaction but also have access. They're not handicapped, they're not crippled, they're not aged care, they're not NDIS. They just want to have a smaller property to live in the same location. That's why we utilise the fall of the site in relation to the basement car park, the internal lift, design factors. In fact, as far as quality design, the comments about quality design, I've taken this plan sort of concept through other projects and also doing it through Access Australia, which we do quite a few, and Summerhill, as you probably know, the 2 groups in Newcastle.
Sorry, if I could just return to the question that we're assessing the application under the local...
It states that the department...
Excuse me,
sorry.
If I can finish. We're assessing and considering the application under the LEP, and that has a very specific definition around group homes, and part of that is that they're used to provide permanent household accommodation for people with a disability or people who are socially disadvantaged. But I've been unable to find any information as part of the application about what types of people are being targeted, and also too to understand what is the social impact of providing 6 group homes on the one site. And there doesn't seem to be any assessment, and I can't tell from the information that's been submitted exactly how this is going to operate.
Well, with respect, I raised this issue about a social impact statement with the consulting planner, with the council rather, and he gave me back a notice and said, no, you do not require it at this stage. And I'm also aware that particular planner is actually that does projects external from this particular council, and consequently is aware that group homes do need to have a certificate from the New South Wales Health before the occupation takes place. And that's part and parcel of a condition which is issued by this council on the DA. And that's where it's exceptionally disappointing. And I'm disappointed in putting myself in your position, Michael, that the conditions, the general conditions for group homes should be with your report. They're not. It's a deficit in relation to the preparation report, and I would move that this is deferred and placed into a more senior person at council. I started this process with Tony Ravinsky, who's now the new Director of Planning over in Waverley, and he's been through the process like a lot of people at our stage of life, or my stage of life, and your stage of life. We're trying to produce some dwellings for the community, and in your report, you go through the AED report, it's stating there wants housing for people 55 to 65 years of age, quite capable. Look, I'm 70, you know that, Michael, and I'm quite capable to get around. I love to live in a group home. I live in a high-rise now, but the point is, there is people who want to stay in the location, and that report, that AED report, goes through, have a read through page, particularly 65 to 72. It makes very clear statements. This is the type of housing wanted. Also, Planning New South Wales want this type of housing as well. Group homes for that group. They are not handicapped. They're not NDIS. And you make a statement, I'm quite happy to take on board in relation to the area, but by I have demonstrated this is a very high performance opportunity for the current LEP, your new LEP, your housing strategy, and in particular, your disability action plan. You don't be completely disabled. Your disability action plan means you have an ease of movement, right? Less steps. And this is, and that's why I was going to ask for deferral, because council say, I want it further away to the north, from the north. Fine. Why can't I have a narrow driveway? Why sacrifice 600 millimetres, which is totally unnecessary. We know it's 7.2 metres across the Mr 55's window. Right? Why have 600 millimetres to sacrifice 5 people who could live in real good happiness just because someone wants a house 600 millimetres further away? It's unfair. It's not correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any further.
Any questions?
No questions.
Don? No?
Regardless of how you refer to the dwellings, you're obviously an experienced planner. You don't see these elevations as having a significant impact on the neighbouring properties?
With respect, Mr. Jones, I believe the biggest problem has been is there's been a lot of misinformation up and down the street.
Can I just finish? It's fairly clear if you look at the documentation. We're looking at 3 and sometimes 4 levels of building in a very domestic setting on a steep site. You were telling us a minute ago that you've worked with the topography of the site.
Yes.
This is a good environmental outcome for this particular position. Do you honestly believe that these plans reflect that?
Yes, because the problem being is there's been a lack of understanding of the plans. I actually raised with the council planner, can we have an open forum to demonstrate the plans? No. Can we have any sort of interaction with the community? No.
Did you do any 3-dimensional modelling?
Yes.
Did you submit the modelling?
No. Because I have I have.
Surely, if you were trying to demonstrate.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, but there's been a issue with communication with council planner on this particular matter, and we had a meeting, we set things up, we want to report things back, and we got delayed. Oh no, don't come see us yet. I'll send something out next week. No, next week, and it's all been documented, black and white. We've been mucked around for months, and I'm sorry, I don't like saying derogatory about local government or any of that. As you know, I'm an old planner, but we haven't had a fair run. We quite happily work with the community to end up with a good outcome there, and this will end up in a very nice outcome. We can't get blamed for the development down the street where the people don't even know about the project. We can't get blamed because there is council that previously approved a childcare centre. It's not our fault. What we're trying to do is end up stimulating a realistic outcome for the street. You go through the terms of character and issues like that. This actually improves the character of the street. It will improve it quite significantly.
No more questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. Decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website.
Thank you.
Pleasure. So moving to the next item on our agenda is for 5 to 25 Kyle Parade, Kyle Bay. It's a modification application for the extension of hours of operation. Speaking against the proposal is firstly Mr. John Kavanagh. Mr. Kavanagh, are you here? Please come forward, sir.
Excuse me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're Mr. John Kavanagh. You're from 45 Kyle Parade, Kyle Bay. Is that correct?
I have, excuse me, yeah.
Do you need some water?
I'd appreciate it, please, if it's
All right.
available.
Yeah, we can organise that. Just hold on.
I have brought to the council yesterday a file of diary notes. That's it, looks like, yep. Which are contemporaneous notes which I have taken over the past 2 years in relation to the conduct of the business next door to my house. It is listed as 25 Kyle Parade, but my house is number 45. The buildings, my house, and the walls of the shop are 1 metre apart. It's a quirk of the numbering is a quirk of someone I don't know. I can't work it out. It runs from 25 to 45. Now, I had submissions associated with those diary notes, which were also...
There's your water.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Just expressing my objections to elements of the plan. Well, not so much the plan, but the terms of the proposed change to the development proposal, and that accompanied that yesterday. It's in the folder. So
We will look at that folder.
I don't propose
in
to
due
go over
course.
that again, that's all.
All right, thank you.
Needless to say, though, we object very strongly to a continuation and an exacerbation of the problem that has existed over the past 2 years by extending the opening hours of this business any longer than they have been, mainly because of the apparent inability of the principals of the business to abide by the terms of the development approval of some years ago. There has been a history of confrontation, and it is a stage where it cannot be negotiated. About 2 years ago, in June, there was a confrontation which involved a patron of the shop, the coffee shop, assaulting me on the footpath at a time when I had plantar fasciitis in my foot and nearly knocked me over. And I recognised fairly quickly that I was on the footpath because I was looking to see why they were trading beyond their recommended time at 10 o'clock. And it came to my pretty quick attention that there was going to be no result for the assault that occurred because I was very outnumbered and I had no supporting witnesses. But it was reported to the police, it was reported to the liquor licensing people, and but no action was taken in relation to that assault. As a consequence, at my age, which I'm over 70 now, I'm very reluctant to go into the street to see if there is a commotion, what's happening inside the shop, because I'm pointed out and identified by the staff, and I have no martial arts training or anything to, or ability to protect myself.
All right, can you elaborate on the types of issues that concern you? Can you tell us
Well,
what
yes,
are
my own
those
safety,
concerns?
first of all, if I go near the place.
So safety,
That's very, very high on the priority at my age.
noise,
Additional to that, though, after a little bit of a concerted complaint campaign to the council, starting around about September, October last year, they have managed to curtail a lot of the deliveries, which 20 crates of milk getting delivered at 1:30 in the morning has happened on certain times, 2 o'clock, and waking people up, I think, is grossly unreasonable. And that was happening. Other deliveries, it wasn't happening every day. It would happen on a Monday, for example, and then on Wednesday, when the next delivery would come, it would happen at 4 o'clock that day. So you couldn't just sit out there all night and watch for the delivery. Nevertheless, it still wake you up because truck drivers have a habit when they're delivering of slamming truck doors, both of cabins and baggage areas.
Mr. Kavanagh, can I ask you some questions?
Yes,
Again,
sir.
I'm happy for you to tell us, but I'm curious. So the nature of the problems relate to sleep disturbance,
Yes.
noise from patrons entering and leaving the premises,
Sorry, patrons.
patrons entering and leaving, car doors slamming, closing, people sitting, lingering outside,
It's not so
talking.
much patrons entering and leaving, no, I've got to be fair.
Right,
They're
okay.
not too bad, but when they come early, I think it's a fair thing for them to start at 7 as the DA.
All right, but,
For deliveries to start after 7
okay.
and in particular,
So it's the early delivery of goods,
sorry,
early delivery of goods,
early delivery of goods,
right?
early collection of garbage bins.
Yep.
I'm not real partial to 5:45 collection of garbage bins in a laneway behind the shops.
Right.
You know,
What about patron behaviour?
the patron behaviour is not bad generally.
Right.
I can't complain about that and don't. I would say this, it was emphasised to us when these applications were brought on several years ago, that there would be no garbages out of undercover. They would be kept inside the garages underneath. At the back of those shops on any day, there are 13 or 14 cancelled garbages just sitting there all the week. They sit there in summer, they gear up with a stench, they sit there, 7 red, 7 yellow, and then 2 what I call industrial garbages, J.J. Rich's big size, and on other days of the week,
Dumpsters.
yeah, dump garbage, yes. And the two Remondis types of garbage, 3 are blue and 3 are red. They are in underneath the coffee shop. But they can be left on the street for 2 days before they're collected. And the place just looks delightful. If garbages were Christmas trees, the kids would love them.
Rest assured, we'll be asking the proponent to explain. I will be asking the proponent to explain those discrepancies.
Why are we getting garbage deliveries at 5:45?
Well, I'll ask the
Garbage
proponent.
collections, and why are we getting a council truck, which does the streets and gardens, reversing in there with a beep, 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 searchlight on the back of the truck, heading towards the front of our house, sorry, the back of our house and the east of our house, I mean, which is the rear of the house from Kyle Parade, where we sleep.
Well, that was my next question. Where are your bedrooms? To the rear of the house or the front, towards the street?
Well, one's at the front, one passes across the one directly, the major bedroom, runs for the full width of our house from the street. It's at the front of the house and the back of the house.
Right.
We like some ventilation at the back. We have windows open most of the time unless it's raining, and we cop this noise at very inconsiderate hours of the day, and sometimes a stench.
Yeah.
Not always, in fairness, but I think it's just unreasonable. The approval says after 7. Why are they there at 5:45? And it's a council truck as well. Exacerbating this,
Yeah.
the first house in Merriman Street, which is number 4, is abutting the driveway at the back of the shops.
All right. Can I ask you, this application is seeking an extension of half an hour in the morning, so
Yes.
6:30 instead of 7,
Yes,
and then another 1 hour in the evening from 10 until 11.
understood.
Can you address me or address the panel with respect to the 30 minutes in the morning, firstly? Can you address us
You
on
want me
that?
to address that first?
Yes, please.
Could I just make one point? Returning to that house in Merriman Street, is a double-storey house that has been built and occupied over the last 2 years. It creates a noise tunnel and a stench tunnel as well, running through to our place, our backyard. Now, you're asking me to address the
early start.
Early start.
The 6:30 start.
Well, the early start is, to my way of thinking, another intrusion on our silent time and our enjoyment of the ambience of our home. It's as simple as that. We get this place is open 365 days a year. We don't get any break from it. And it's just a continuous coming and going of delivery trucks and staff. I mean, I would estimate that there are 100, I can't be sure, but there would be 100 vehicles visiting that shop every week. In terms of staff and deliveries, not the vehicles outside. There are thousands of them.
And can I ask, when the delivery trucks arrive, do they use the back lane or do they drop off on the street?
They've dropped off. They were delivering to the front of the shop up until earlier this year, because I and other neighbours have had a campaign of complaint to the council because we're just getting no sleep. I have a medical condition called sleep deprivation, caused by sleep deprivation, which can lead to diabetes and dementia. And I don't think that's reasonable at all. And that started last year. And heart problems.
So you estimate how many deliveries per week?
About 100.
About 100.
Yeah, they've got 10 staff, so there's 70. And some of the deliveries are every second day. So it's not.
All right. So that happens in the earlier hours of the morning.
Well, it did. It's dropped off to a degree.
Right.
Thankfully.
Okay.
But it is, and of course, it really makes my day when a fellow rolls a tanker into the backyard and starts pumping out at 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, of a kitchen
Sump. Yeah. Okay.
And of course, they've got those trunk-like pipes, which when pulled over the mudguard just sound like someone running something over your teeth.
All right. So that's in relation to the morning, early hours of the morning.
Well, it's all early hours of the morning, the deliveries.
Can you elaborate on your concerns concerning the extra hour in the evening?
In the evening?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the difficulty with the evening is, and they don't have many functions there in the evening, but they go home at 5 o'clock. They could do something to expand their business in the time between when they go home towards 10 o'clock. They haven't got to open all the way to 10 o'clock. But when they do go to 10 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock before they leave the premises. Mm-hmm. And the last time they did that was about 3 weeks ago. And Mr. Oxenham and I don't know the name of the chef, but their cars were there until 11:45, and they had the rear garage door open, and the noises that were coming out of there were like balloons bursting. I don't know what they were doing, but this was up till about 11:50 in the evening.
Okay.
So it's not a case of finishing up at 10 o'clock and getting out of the place straight away. It's a case of they're cleaning up something in the garage, whether they're crushing boxes or what, but it was making a cracking noise like a balloon bursting. And it went on for about half an hour.
All right.
After they finished upstairs, although I note that on that occasion they left their furniture on the street, the alfresco furniture on the street. No problem with that, but they didn't spend time taking it in.
All right.
But generally, there's got to be some tightening up on that aspect of the night time. If they leave at 10, they leave at 10. That's fine. I have no objection to that.
All right. I think we understand your issues and you've
I'm trying to be fair.
painted the picture.
I'm not trying to
So-
close anyone down.
No, we understand. Well, I thank you for your submission. It's been quite detailed and informative. So I think the panel's aware of your
Of
concerns.
course, the daddy of them all is a gentleman who turns up. The filters have to be changed above the vats in the stoves. The industrial filters.
Yeah.
Turns up at 3 o'clock in the morning
All right.
with lights on high beam on his ute and proceeds to put a couple of industrial filters down outside the shops at the back. And of course the lights are streaming into our backyard and my neighbour's yard, and it's all a bit much. The other thing is, and I don't know who's responsible for this, but some of the garbages have broken glass in them. Special garbages seem to be allocated to be filled with broken glass, or bottles, it sounds as though it's broken. So it's brought out from the shop. If it's late at night, it's the other shop, not number 5, and it's just tipped in. It's a big container like this, 3 foot high, and I presume it's from the bar contents where they're disposed of inside. 11 o'clock at night, they decide to tip it into the garbage.
Right, but this is the other shop next door.
Well,
or the other
11
restaurant.
o'clock at night, I assume it is. It's shop 5 doesn't open a lot at night.
No.
This is fairly regular. So it's from the other shop, but it has happened.
All right. No, I appreciate that. And there are remedies under the Liquor Act for you to take. There are remedies under the Liquor Act in relation to licensed premises about the quiet and disorder of the neighbourhood.
The Liquor Licensing Board, as it was called, when I had the problem with the assault.
Yes, I'm saying to you is there are remedies under the Liquor Act which are discrete from the matters that we're dealing with today.
Right.
All right. Now just stay put for a second and we'll see if there are any questions of the panel. Panel?
No.
Mr. Jones. Thank you, Mr. Kavanagh.
Thank you for your time, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, I take it that you're also, you're here for Marie Claire Kavanagh as well, who's also registered to speak?
That's my daughter.
Yes, is she making a submission? Would you like to make a submission, ma'am?
No, she's just a very loyal daughter.
Right. Thank you.
She works for Sydney City Council.
Right. Now, speaking on behalf of the proponent is Matthew Oxenham. Mr. Oxenham, please come forward.
Thanks everyone for seeing me tonight. I'm here to hopefully extend our trading hours from 7 a.m. till 6:30. If I could talk about that first. We did all the requirements that the council asked us for acoustic reports and everything else. And those reports came back pretty much saying that there wouldn't be much of a noise difference at that time of the day, being on a busy road. So we have had a sign up the front of our shop from day one saying, please respect our neighbours, from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So generally we have the doors closed, have the sign blocking the way in, and everyone waits out the front. Some mornings there's 2 people, some mornings there's 20 people. A lot of tradies, when they try to go around the sign and barge their way in, we say, sorry, we can't serve you. And they, huff, take off, make a lot of noise. It's frustrating. What do you mean you can't open it until 7? I mean, that's the rule, that's the neighbourhood rule. We've tried to respect it from day one. My last cafe in Sans Souci was from 6 a.m. It was on Clairville Avenue. We were surrounded by residential. We had apartments above us. And it was the same thing then. People would try to get a coffee at 5:40. You're always going to get that earlier crowd trying to get a coffee. So all we're trying to do is look after the community, looking after the mums, going to the gym, looking after the tradies, and just looking after the people of the village. So that's our first requirement. The second one was holding 10 to 15 functions a year. There's a misconception at the moment that we'll be open 7 days a week till 11 o'clock at night. We just want our liquor license finishes at 10, and we want to give our clients the opportunity to leave quietly, not in a big crowd of people, which generally happens, because come 9:45, I'm ushering people out, and then you get this big amount of people on the street, and they're all sort of waiting for Ubers at the same time. And mind you, there is a busy restaurant next to me as well, which trades 6 nights or 5 nights a week, and has a 10 o'clock curfew as well. So generally, we just want people to leave quietly, and I do stand at the front. I do have the door shut, and when the furniture is left overnight out the front, it's because we try to minimise the noise of packing away the furniture. We do clean up the shop thoroughly. We vacuum and mop, and get it spick and span for the next day. So yeah, it's just for specialty nights and functions. Don't do 18th, don't do 21st, they're 40ths, christenings, stuff like that. Look, we're really after an amicable solution. We can work with any neighbours or anyone who has issues with what we're proposing. We spoke in depth with Sergeant Dan Morland from the Hurstville Licensing Police, and he guided us. We did breach a rule that one night that was spoken about. It was a grey area. We didn't realise that we had to get everyone out by 10. It's probably about 11:15 when the altercation happened out the front. A couple of dads thought that a man on the street was looking at their kids through the window and approached and asked him what he was looking at. And that's history now, but that's what happened. So we've never broken that rule. Once we knew it was a 10 o'clock curfew, we've stuck to it. In regards to all the deliveries, this is a hard one. I mean, what business in the world can, and all the other cafes and small businesses around the areas, not get any deliveries before the time they open? When we first started, we used to get our deliveries brought and put on a table that the restaurant used to leave next door out the front. It was, all the drivers were instructed not to use their reverse sounds, place the boxes there, don't slam the doors. And then we received the council's or the complaints about early deliveries. So we changed our whole delivery schedule, or deliveries of bread, of milk, of garbage, collection, of grease trap collection. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses, these deliveries might have a new driver, they don't know the rule, they'll drop the stuff off. It's frustrating. So we've managed to get all our deliveries after 7. Our garbage collection, sometimes the garbage truck is on the street 10 to 7 and he waits now till 7 o'clock. Now, our garbage bins are kept underneath the building. We minimised our pickup times to once a week to minimise noise. So the red bins, the smelly bins get done on Friday mornings and the cardboard blue bins get done on Wednesday mornings after 7. Now, that has created a little bit of a smell under our shop because these bins are getting picked up once a week. And what we do is we try to get them onto the street and away from the shop to make it smell, possibly on a Thursday afternoon for a Friday pickup. And then on the Friday morning when they come back, we hose them down with bleach and leave them out the back, which is next to Mr. Kavanagh's window, which would appear that we're storing our bins outside, but they're actually just drying and cleaning. So there's a bunch of council bins which all the other shops use. There's a restaurant next to us, there's a hairdresser, and there's a florist down the end. So they all share those bins, they're not our bins. So we have nothing to do with the council pickup of those bins, which is sometimes at 5:45. We don't use those bins, nothing to do with us. The council did an audit on the bins, a lady came out, and that was determined then. So that's our answer to that. You know, we feel that all the negative submissions have just come from one neighbour, and he sort of got the people around him to make these negative submissions. One of the negative submissions when I asked for the information was from the lady down the driveway, and she was more worried about the parking in the street with the sport on a Saturday. Everything we've tried to adhere to over the years, if we've done something wrong, we didn't know, we haven't gone back and done it again. So moving forward, we are trying to be good in the neighbourhood. The water board with the grease trap collection, they've been told 7 o'clock, but the gentleman on the phone seems to think that the water board doesn't have any rules, so they can come and pick up the grease trap whenever they want. They can't get in until we're there, so that never happens. I think talking about the filters being dropped off at 3 a.m, we do our own filters now, but in the past, the guy always waits for us at 7 o'clock. So I think that's next door as well, the noise. Look, we're just part of the community. We're a small business. We've got a family, young family. Sometimes just doing the days isn't enough. We need to hold these functions. We've got a liquor license till 10. Why wouldn't you use it? So yeah, that's basically our side, and hopefully we can all come to an agreement. We're open to just meet halfway. I mean, if it means that at night then everyone finishes drinking at 10 and there'll be no music after 10 and no alcohol served after 10. Like, all these things can be put in place so everyone's happy. The 6:30 start, there won't be much noise. It's just a few people. So that will be minimal as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Oxenham. Firstly, can you tell me the typical hours that you trade up until in the afternoon? You close at 5, 4?
Yeah, so 7 till 4, kitchen opens at 7.
Right.
Kitchen shuts at 3 during the week and 3:30 on the weekend. So 4 o'clock, that's it. The chair's up, it's hanging, we're ready to clean and get out of there.
Right. How long does it take you to set up in the morning? So I'm assuming that if you're a 7 o'clock start, you normally get there at 6:15,
Yeah.
6:30?
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah,
right, about
6:15.
3/4 of an hour beforehand?
Yeah, chef's in there at 6, prepping. It's
Right.
always a lot of prep.
That's an hour before?
Yep.
Right. So on a 6 o'clock start in the morning, he'd get there at 5, is that correct?
We wouldn't start at 6,
Or
but
6:30, you get there at 5:30?
yeah. We're actually going to, if it does get passed, start the kitchen from 7 It's only just coffees from 6:30. Kitchen opens at 7.
So,
So that wouldn't change for the chef.
so he'd still arrive at about 6:30,
6.
6.
Yeah.
All right. And the clean up in the afternoon,
Yep.
you're there until what, 5:30?
Yeah, 5:30 max.
About 5:30. You realise that you're nestled within a residential area, which means that obviously the receptors or the sensitivity of what you do is the people around are more susceptible to noise than, say, an industrial or a commercial area, which has the benefit of a commercial setting, not a residential setting. So in terms of what you do, you have to be very vigilant with respect to your operations, and a plan of management would be a good idea. And then your external contractors need to be made fully aware that you're the one that are responsible for their actions. Because ultimately the breach of the development consent, and I understand that the council enforcement officers have been down there on a number of occasions. And I've no doubt that Mr. Cabinet comes along today in good faith to tell us about certain things that have happened in the past that you must address. It's your responsibility, it's your business. So if this panel is minded to extend your hours, and I'm not preempting any decision that might be taken, your conditions have to be complied with. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Because the sanctions that arise from a breach are criminal sanctions, on-the-spot fines, and civil enforcement restraint, which means that it's not going to be life will not be comfortable for you with a restraining order from the court. You need to understand that. You need to understand that it's not just a frivolous exercise to get a 6:30 approval or an 11 o'clock approval. You might be put on a trial period to see how you go. Again, I'm not preempting what this panel might do or might not do. It might refuse your application.
Sure.
But it seems clear that a resident comes along here this afternoon, a 70-year-old man, complaining about the way you operate your business. You're profiteering from this business at his expense. With respect, you don't need those adverse comments from the gallery. So, I appreciate that you're putting things in place, but it seems to me that it's all too little. You need to step up and make a proper concerted effort to ensure that your business isn't causing an amenity issue with the neighbourhood. So that's all I'd like to say to you. Any other comments from the panel?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I concur with those comments, but I just ask, are you aware of all of the conditions of consent that relate to the operation of the cafe and have been in place since 2014?
I've seen the submission that came back from the complaints, and over the time.
No, sorry, I'm talking about the development consent that you operate under.
Yes.
And so, for example, the hours or the limit on the hours of operation until 10 p.m. has been in place since 2014.
Yep.
And I think you said before that it was something you didn't realise.
At first, yeah, two years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
We've since then we comply with every rule, every DA that's in our lease and in our.
And you're aware of the condition of consent that also limits the use with respect to deliveries, and that there are hours actually stipulated as part of that?
Yes. Yeah. My bread delivery gets delivered to my house and been put into the back of the car because they couldn't deliver before or after 7. So
that's all, Mr. Chairman.
No, the chair and the panel have asked the questions I was interested in. Thank you.
How long have you operated the cafe?
3 years.
Is it your consent that you're currently operating under, or you took over a consent?
Took it over.
You took it over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know, was that the 2014 consent?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been 3 years.
The previous cafe had a lot of problems as well.
And do you know how long they were operating there for?
2 years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website. We also have some other submitters. Stavros Karatikos, would you like to come forward, sir? Now, I take it that you're a patron of the premises, is that correct?
No, not.
No, you're
I'm
not?
a neighbour.
Okay, thank you. Whereabouts do you live?
34A Carl Parade, Calbe.
34A.
I'm practically opposite the Tony Governor and the coffee shop.
All right.
My name is Stavros Kridikos. I live opposite the coffee shop. I purchased my property back in 1985, and I built the finished building in 87. That makes me a resident in that area for 35 years. So I am in support of this application, and I honestly hope that the solution will be to be found. So my neighbor Tony and the coffee owner live in peace. And I say that because I have seen few things from my window opposite. I'm in favor of the opening hours because it will give extra hours to the workers and also in the critical times that we live in. Most people go to work, start work at 7 o'clock, so they want to have a coffee before that. And if that coffee shop operates between 6:30 and 7 o'clock for coffees only, I think that would be perfect for all workers in the area. It is a local business, and before I purchased my property, I had a choice to purchase anywhere in the area back in 1985. And the reason I've chosen to purchase that, it was because it was a neighborhood shopping center. We had a small grocery shop or small supermarket. We had a pharmacy. We had a butcher. We had a hairdresser, and so on. We've lost the supermarket. We've lost the butcher. We've lost the convenience that we used to have. But now we're fortunate because we have a restaurant, a proper restaurant, and we do have a coffee shop and a restaurant that we can get, instead of having just to buy the milk from the supermarket, now I can buy a proper coffee from the coffee shop across the road and have a proper meal.
I don't think there's an issue with respect to the use. It's about the way the place is conducted and what sort of amenity impacts it's causing to the neighbour next door. So I'm interested in your view.
The reason I'm here is to hear what Tony had to say, because I don't know his problems, and apparently he does have some issues, and honestly hope that those issues will be addressed as they have been addressed for the car parking spaces on the street. And we've got those white lines now, they look like a crocodile teeth, but nevertheless, they serve its purpose, okay? I'm on top of that and I can see all those white lines, especially, Now, busy and elderly people in the area can have a meal, especially these days that we cannot travel very far. And I'm in favor because of that, because I can go across the road and get either a cup of coffee and I haven't seen any impact. Ever since Matt took over the business about 2.5 years ago, he has improved the business as far as sound and noise and all these sort of things. I have seen him putting placards and notices that I'm operating from that time to that time. He hangs off a chair on top of that so people cannot get in. They get a message that I don't want any more customers. We start at 4 o'clock and we start at 4 o'clock. And speaking to him the other day, he said to me, I know my liquor license goes up to 10 o'clock. The reason I want to get an extended extra hour is because I want the patrons to get diffused slowly. I'm not going to serve liquor till 11 o'clock. I want them to be diffused and settled down before they leave the premises and make all these loud noises and things like that, which I find reasonable. And as far as the parking concerned, there is plenty of on-street parking with a green park around the area in Merriman Street and Carl Parade. Okay, and all is to say, Tony, I hope you find a solution to this problem and, have at least extra half an hour.
All right, thank you. Just remain seated and I'll see if there are any questions of the panel. Panel?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next submitter is George Kolios. Mr. Kolios, come forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Please proceed.
Right, so I'll use my notes for my submission as a bit of a guide, but just wanted to respond to the suggestions that Matt and the operators of the cafe are not running a good business there. They are constantly, as the gentleman indicated, they're working under a DA that was not theirs. They hadn't been through the process. They have conditions, but I suppose in time and having taken over a lease of someone else's DA, you don't understand all the conditions potentially. They run a great tight ship down there. The cafe is the heart of the community. So essentially I've come here to give a bit of support on that. The cafe runs and is there for locals. I live further away, but I go there purposely to get my coffee because I know there's good coffee in the area and there's no other coffee shops open at 7 o'clock currently. That early trade for coffee is essentially shouldn't be too much of an impact. Shouldn't be an impact on the amenity of the area. Noise in those early hours, that shoulder period of the morning, where there's more cars and trucks on the road and other noises in the community already starting to pick up. An early trade for people arriving to pick up a coffee shouldn't even have to be a point of concern. They don't even get to use all their hours that they do have approval for. So their approval is for up to 10 p.m. So allowing small business to be able to work, make money these days and continue trade and work and be flexible in working and doing other events is appropriate. The intention is, I believe, to be able to let people dissipate and to leave on their own accord, nice and quietly. You don't have everyone rushing out at 10 p.m. Just in terms of that flexibility, this day and age, under this current situation where we've got COVID issues and everything else, there's a need for government departments to be flexible, to allow businesses to run. Essentially, picking on a single resident picking on noise issues where they live adjacent to a cafe, and creating an issue for the business, creating an issue for every other person that's trying to arrive and come to a business to support it, is not appropriate. The suggestion from the chair that he's not running a good business, that I took offence, as did others in the gallery, because we understand how tight a ship that Matt runs there, and how appropriate he is in the area, and how he's trying to address things, even if they happen to pop up, and he had not known about it, or however that was caused. I arrive to the shop there in the morning sometimes because I want to get my early coffee, and I see this gentleman standing on the side of his property trying to cause trouble, almost looking out for and trying to pick on a small business. It's not appropriate. You don't go around, you don't expect to turn up to a business and have someone peering over your shoulder wondering what you're doing. As part of my submission, talk about how we treat it as a local hub. We'd like to be able to get there at all times of the day, appropriate hours, be able to get our coffee, be able to attend events in the evenings when and if they're on, and to be able to support the business that is the real centre of a real hub in that little community. That's it for my submission.
All right, whereabouts do you live?
I live at Beverley Park.
Beverley Park. All right. Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'll see if the panel does. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our final submitter is Russell Pomeroy. Please come forward, sir. So your name is Russell Pomeroy and your address is, or whereabouts are you?
Number 8 Inala Avenue. So if you have a look on the map, where the Coal Bay Club is, mine is the closest house. So there's probably a couple of points I want to bring up. One is I'm a local business owner.
Yep.
And I like to get my coffee early. My wife, myself, my children all visit, obviously, the coffee shop. Now, we'll get there sometimes at 5 to 7. We know that we can't get coffee till 7 o'clock. And Mr. Kavanagh, who you've all heard, will stand there and he will try to bully and intimidate anyone standing on the pavement. My wife and kids both wanted to come up and I said that wasn't necessary, that I would relay my feelings as well as theirs to the chairman and to all you people. In the respect to the late opening of the extra hour, living directly next to the club, council in their goodwill have now given that to people who run weddings. They have a 1 o'clock licence, which they operate twice a week. I don't have an issue with that because they're business owners and they're trying to earn money. They also may keep going until 1:30. Sometimes it's not until 2 o'clock until people finally leave that car park. And let me tell you, it makes a hell of a lot more noise, that building there, with 500 people in it, than the cafe that we're discussing. They're probably my main points I want to make, and I ask that you all use common sense. We're not asking for a lot. Half an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon to have to go through and jump through these hoops, in my opinion, as a business owner, is absolutely ridiculous. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please remain seated. Can I say that amongst this panel, we've probably got 100 years of experience in relation to amenity impacts and town planning issues. So your submissions are not lost. We understand it's always a balancing exercise between the proponent's needs and residents' needs as well. So there are competing interests and we understand that and we balance those. Okay. So I don't have any questions for you, panel. Thank you for your submission.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
That concludes that matter. A decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website. Moving to the next item on our agenda, which is 39 Waitara Parade, Hurstville Grove, which is the review application for the two-storey attached dual occupancy. We do not have anyone speaking in support of the application, but we do have 4 people registered to speak against it. Our first speaker is Fabio Zantonello. Please come forward, sir.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'll just go off a few notes. Firstly, there's an error with the DCP 60%. It's 1.5 metres over the limit. The limit was a separate reason for the first refusal. The front balcony width and setback are non-compliant. The planter box to be deleted to ensure full compliance with the controls. No chance for them to amend or add later on. It's a pretty busy street. There's going to be an issue with parking, with more than likely the garage being used as a storage room. There's also a bus stop across the road. With the trees, council's own arborist has reviewed the 2 trees on the site and said they're very healthy, mature trees. The development proposal should not even come close to the tree neighbouring 37. That's where I'm at. Removal of trees would greatly impact the ecosystem, and council, I think, should not back away and follow their own report advice. The size and bulk of this proposed development is not what the streetscape needs. The elevated and height of this should be not approved. If the builder wanted to do all this, he should have bought a bigger block. I applaud council's first decision to refuse the development, and I hope that because we're the ones that have to live with this, that council once again refuses this to go ahead, because many of these items are non-compliant. Like I go walk around, I take my dog for a walk at night, and there's a development down the road on Bayswater and the Crescent, and there's 3 trees on the footpath that have been barricaded properly to ensure that they live a long and healthy life. You've got this developer coming along and going, I want to get rid of this tree. The tree's been there for 100 years. What's left around us, it's going to be a concrete jungle. I look at my property, I've got beautiful trees out front, beautiful at the back. It's just greed. That's what this world's coming to.
That's your submission?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Just remain seated and I'll see if there are any questions. I don't have any questions. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Our next submitter is Nicholas Stathopoulos. Please proceed.
Thank you. I've written this out and it's quite simple. Privacy, the 2 trees in the back in winter time they lose their leaves and in summertime they blossom. And from where I am they look nice. They create some privacy for us. Privacy, the building that is proposed to get built there that backs up to my fence. It looks very close to my fence line and I feel like they'll be able to see into my pool, so that's a private issue. The building, what I've seen in the plans, look like 2 big boxes looking into my backyard. The 2 buildings that are proposing to get built look like they're in a square formation where every other building that has been put up in the area has got some sort of step back to make it not look like it's an actual 2 building, to give it some creativity. If it does go ahead, there's a section in the back of it that seems to be very close to the rear of the tree, and it doesn't seem like there's anything there. I'm worried that if it is approved, that the person building will then submit something and then build extra upon it, even if it gets very close to the percentage that building should be built in. The fence line that runs through the center of the 2 buildings seems to run straight through the middle of that tree. So the fence, if they do put a fence in the middle separating the 2, do they then go around the tree or do they stop at the tree and then continue the fence line? I've written here profits over environment, profits over families and peoples and privacy. The area that I live in is a wonderful area, and I don't want to see people putting something together just to make some money that is going to not be as nice to look at. I plead with the councillors to review it some more for something as big as this building not to get ahead. Thank you.
Just remain seated and I'll see if there are any questions. I have one question. You're behind, aren't you?
That's correct, to the
And
side.
is your premises are below? Does the street drop down a bit? It does. By how much?
The front of the street drops down, I think we're about 2 point something metres.
Right.
But when I built back about 12 years ago. The driveway ramps up, and then I've actually lowered my place a little bit to make the fall not look as great.
Okay. You benefit from the tree at the back, and that's what you look at.
Yeah, especially in the pool area, that 2 trees, especially in summertime when we are in the pool area, block a lot of the view, and even the home next to that property.
Okay.
And in winter time, we're not in the backyard so much with the trees, with the leaves dropping, because all these 2 particular trees, the leaves drop.
They drop into your pool.
They drop into the pool, and it is a pain, but it gives me some sort of privacy from the neighbours.
All right, I understand. Any questions, panel? No. Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Our next submitter is Charles Chu. Mr. Chu, please come forward. So you're at number 41, Waitara Parade, Hurstville Grove, which is the immediate neighbour.
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm right next door, and I'm going to be affected the most, I guess, with the size of this development. Before I started this, you visited today, and I just want to make sure that I've got this all right. When I had a look at the addendum, I found out that the calculations were wrong. I spoke to the team leader, Liam Frame, and he said that he was going to send you an addendum notifying you of the incorrect calculations, right? But he said that irrespective of the calculations, that the application is amended for refusal on this matter alone, and he would ensure full compliance with the 60% limit, which is 25.518 and not the 27.968 figure on the agenda report. It is actually, on the report, it actually says it's breached it by 72 millimetres, but it's actually 1.521 metres, right? So it's quite a huge discrepancy. And but as you said, in essence, it's recommended that it's going to be refused on that, on this matter alone anyway. And their recommendation was that the rear balcony planter box will be deleted. So and then I also had various other concerns that I raised with him. He said that he'd send you a memo or addendum. So in regards to the 60% limit, right, in the first DA, it was massively misstated. Yeah, they stated it was 65% and it was 71%, right, which is about 5 metres over the limit. And in this statement, they just say it complies, and they say that the 2 rear balconies, which is still there on the drawings, well, balconies or planter box, whatever they are, they're still on the drawings, and it has breached the limit by 1.21 metres, right? And in the first DA, this non-compliant limit should have been stated and included on its own as a clear and separate determination reason for refusal in the review report, which it wasn't, because obviously they probably thought it was such a small amount, right? Now for us, its full compliance is critical in its determination for our solar loss and privacy, and also its undesirable shear bulk, because it's such a big development. And even at the 60% limit, it surpasses 37, and it surpasses our second levels quite considerably already, and that's at the 60% limit. We have objections with the front facade, everything about it. It's non-compliant with the DCP controls. There's no primary, secondary facade. The colour is dark and the size is like it's a block shape, making it dominant, and it's inconsistent with the neighbours, the streetscape, and its excessive bulk, like, you know. Size of both the balconies exceed the 2.5 width and the 3 metre setback limit, which is really important for us because they, on the southern side there, they've got a balcony that actually can look down, and we have privacy issues there because we have living rooms and we have bay windows in that area, like, you know. And there's no other buildings in our street that actually looks like that. Dual occupancies are like that, but there are some really nice ones which really, you know, with setbacks and everything, they look a lot different, and it would be nice to have a nice design, you know, because our street is, the houses there are all very well designed, and we've got quite a mix of different buildings. There's not many flat roofs, and most of them are pitch roofs, like, you know. Now, we have significant objections to the levels, right? It will create major impacts on side boundary fences, which will apply to our property and also number 37's. Reduced levels from plans available, and there isn't much detail. Their proposed ground floor is at places 600 to 700 millimetres above our ground level, which means that our colour-bond fence will be in the ground by this measurement on their side, as well as we would need 2.6, 2.7 high fence, like, you know. Now, in the first DA, I approached team leader Chris Young, who acknowledged when he looked at the elevations, the front levels were raised above the existing levels, the existing ground levels, and because of this, it raises all the levels once they set their levels, and he said it would not be supported. And regarding my concerns with the fences and the boundary, he said that there would be a condition of existing ground level not to be raised between boundary and the building, and no fill allowed. So the DA was refused anyway. So, but in this review, it was in my submission, but overlooked again. In discussion with Liam Frame last Thursday, he was also not supported regarding this and said that it will be mentioned to the panel in an addendum. He had discussed the possibility of lowering the starting floor level of 39, which would be a sensible idea too, because it will also help alleviate its undesirable bulk because it's quite high, which leads me to the issue of their roof, which has a huge and bulky 900 parapet. It overhangs on the southern side. The north side has no overhang. The full compliance to the second floor 60% DCP, which is how far the building can go back, the height of the setbacks, the height and setbacks from the boundary of the roof will determine our solar loss. We ask if council would apply the 1.2 setback to this parapet. It will definitely help us in our solar loss. Our living areas are all on the northern side. In the winter, we lose all of it downstairs, like, you know. Just to give you an idea, the underside of our eaves, which is the top of our windows on the second story, is 5.2 metres. The top of the parapet will be 7.3 metres, and there's a discrepancy of around about 700 mils already from the ground level to our ground level. So if you add that together, it'd be nearly 8 metres, like, you know. Now, I still have concerns with the window alignments because regarding our first floor living areas, we have 2 windows up there. On the first DA, I got the dimensions and I actually put it on plan to make sure they didn't align. And in that case, there was an alignment of a bathroom, right? But no dimensions were given to me by anyone this time to check. Their courtyard, which is downstairs, item 35 on page 101, it serves no amenity, receives no sun, and it's directly opposite our third window on the ground floor as well. So that's a big courtyard with doors and everything that's looking straight at us, like, you know. Now, this is our home and we have to live here, and what is allowed, we have to put up forever. We're not against building next door, but simply there is absolutely no reason at all for them not to fully comply with all limits and setbacks and controls. If we had to build, we have to follow all the compliances. Nobody, even the developer himself, if he was in our position, would want more detriment imposed upon them than what the limit allows, like, you know. So the DCP controls...
Mr Chair, I'm going to have to wind you up.
Yeah.
I've given you ample time.
Right, okay.
So are you nearly finished your submission?
Yes, well, that's my conclusion. And
right.
Anyway, I'm only going to say that, you know, that, yeah, in essence, they're doing it because they're developers and they just want to maximise their profits.
Can I ask, did you build your home, or
No,
did you buy it?
No, I didn't.
You built it? Okay.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't know what the ground level was of your home when you...
Well, yeah, it would probably be in that area, right? I did have a look, right? Because with the fences, the underside of the fence is where it is. I have had a look next door, and next door does actually go down like that, right? But there is areas where there's just junk. There's all just junk in it at the moment.
Right. Your home is a slab on ground construction, isn't it?
Yes, it is a slab on ground.
So presumably there would have been some level of filling, and then obviously formwork and a slab, which is probably 400 mil, 300 mil thick.
Yes.
I've had a look at the survey details on the plans, and it appears to me that it's a variation between 400 to 700 millimetres, the finished floor level of the ground floor of the proposal, against what the levels are along the boundary.
Yes.
So we'll certainly look at that for you.
Now, is that on their side of the?
Well, that's the spot survey that's been provided with the DA, which shows the levels at various spots along that boundary.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, I had a look at it, and all I could get is a measurement on their side of the fence.
That's correct.
And then I'm just correlating with our level, which is about 200 mils lower. So that's what I'm...
So when you say 200 mils lower, are you talking about the bottom course of the bricks where your home is built?
No, I'm talking about the bottom of our colour-bond fence, which is our ground level, which is our natural ground level.
Okay, so can I ask you, and I didn't have the opportunity of looking around the side when I was on your property, but you've got a path down the side?
It's just grass.
Just grass. Okay, so the bottom of the fence, the colour-bond fence, which is, I'm assuming, a 1.8 metre high fence.
Yes,
correct. So when you look at the base of the posts of your fence against your home, which is 1.5 off, where does your floor level relate?
Our floor level is probably, it'd be actually under 4 inch, because you can see the slab on the side.
Right.
And
so it steps up a bit.
Yeah, no, it's not. Well, you can see the slab on the side.
Right.
And some of it is actually in the ground. So
presumably it would be in the ground. But I'm just saying the finished level of your floors is above the bottom of the post. Is that correct?
The
fence
finish
post?
of our floor level in the house, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I would say the finish of our floor level in the house would probably be maybe about 4-inch or so.
It's a brick veneer home, isn't it? Your home?
Yeah, it's a brick veneer.
Right.
Yeah.
So they normally have a step and
So
slab.
it would step and then go up. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
No questions.
No questions?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your submission.
Right then.
Our final speaker is Cyrus Yuan. Please come forward, sir. You're Cyrus Yuan and you're from number 8 Bayswater Avenue, Hurstville Grove.
That's correct, yep. I live directly behind the house.
Directly behind. Thank you.
Supposed to be built. Okay, my concerns, sorry, put my glasses on first, relate mainly to the issue of privacy. The two items which are going to affect me most are the exceeding of the 60% limit, the length of house the first floor can be built past, and the potential removal of either of the trees. I won't go into the 60% limit as Fabio and Charlie have already covered that. But for me, obviously, the longer the house, the closer it will encroach to the back boundary, and the removal of any of those trees will both affect our rights of privacy. With regard to the trees, I'd just like to say that I've lived with my family on the same property for the last 25 years, and they've always provided us with a natural screen. They've never been a problem. In fact, they've been a welcome screen for both properties, with the advantage of providing shading as well. I'd like to add that currently the overwhelming majority of existing residences have backyards with more green grass or open space, and the homes are not located very close to the rear boundaries. And this allows for the rights to privacy for all neighbours. And I feel this has contributed to the harmonious and peaceful environment that is enjoyed by the neighbourhood currently. But I fear that the approval of this application will change all this. Now, having expressed my concerns, I'd like to just stress that I'm not opposed to the building of a new home on the property. I'd just like to know that any new structure that's been built falls within the guidelines and the rules set by council, as well as, and most importantly, being respectful to the surrounding neighbours. So that's really as much as I really wanted to say. But, and I want to make one last point, but I hope this is relevant. But in any approval of any house that is to be built there, I'd hope that council polices and monitors the progress of any approved build to ensure that those guidelines and rules are abided by. I would not like to see that any structure has been found post-build to have broken any rules. And I say this mainly because of stories I've heard about possibility of rules being broken during something that's been built, but having been approved beforehand.
Okay. That is a matter that sometimes is beyond the council's control. If a certifier has been appointed, a private certifier is appointed, that's their responsibility to ensure that the plans are adhered to and the building is constructed in accordance with the development consent. So that's about all I can add. All right, Mr. Yuan, just remain seated. I'll just see if there are any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website. That concludes that matter. We move to the next matter, which is 71 to 73 Jubilee Avenue, Carlton, for the shop top housing development. We do not have any registered speakers for that matter, so a decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website. We move to the next matter on our agenda, and that's 66 Mulga Road, Oakley, which is the modification of a development consent for a childcare centre. We have one person registered to speak, which is Jermaine Braun. You're speaking on behalf of the application.
That is correct.
Please proceed.
We've read the report and we are in agreement with the recommendation, and I'm merely here to answer any questions if there are any.
No questions from me.
No questions from me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance. That now concludes the Georges River Local Planning Panel meeting for the 19th of March 2020. The meeting is now closed.